Good afternoon. Today we have Rebecca, and she will be presenting plagiarism. The devil is in the details. Thank you so much, Rebecca.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen and hopefully we can get past these computer glitches. So can you see my screen there? The plagiarism, the devil's in the details. I am going to give you a presentation, and it's going to be a little bit on the funner side of plagiarism, because I think sometimes we are so in depth and get so offended when our students plagiarize. So I'm going to bring you some other aspects on how to use plagiarism a little bit more differently in what I've experienced as an instructional designer and as well as somebody who consults with faculty on plagiarism. So my name is Dr. Rebecca Graetz. I am a senior online instructional design consultant for the Division of Online and Continuing Education at the University of Wisconsin, Oshkosh. This is a new role for me. I've been there for probably 12 weeks, but I've been in this field of work for a very, very long time. I'm also a senior instructional designer and Canvas LMS administrator for Thomas More University in Kentucky. Thomas More University is a small private Catholic college. And my presentation today will be on the scenarios that I've had, and I've worked with them on plagiarism, how to find a plagiarism checker, how to coach faculty through plagiarism, how to give different examples and things like that. So that's where this whole presentation is coming from, is my experience as a Canvas LMS administrator and consulting with faculty on plagiarism at that particular institution. And I have been working in the online world and remotely for a very long time. Thomas More is in Kentucky. I live in Duluth, Minnesota on Lake Superior. So for you out there in the virtual world, working online can work, and making connections can really work that way. So the outcomes of this is choosing a plagiarism checker. How do we do that if we are tasked with that? And I was tasked with that. Sometimes when you're a small institution, they can pick and choose. If you're in a large university system, you can't, you have to use what they have. Define a student's perspective as to what plagiarism is or isn't, working with faculty on how to use it. Analyze a submitted plagiarism check, and how it was missed. There was an assignment that was submitted to a plagiarism checker that we used, and it missed one of them. There were two exactly very simple scenarios, and I'm going to show you what they look like. Discuss creating content that will bring student to awareness and the next level of understanding. And that's actually a video that ties into my title. My title, Plagiarism, the Devil is in the Details, comes from a conversation I had with Dr. Jerome Stewart about this and how he brought some humor to his course on plagiarism and the impact it had on that. So I'm just curious if you want to put in the chat, yes or no, has any of you had to use a choose a plagiarism checker for an institution? I just am curious, there are some institutions that do or don't. You can put yes or no on, or which ones you use inside of the chat. So when I came to Thomas More University, they had just stopped their license with Turnitin. The reason being is there were only 32 instructors using it. And there was only, they were paying $10,000 a year. And they're like, we don't have that kind of money. So when you choose a plagiarism checker, something to be aware of is that when you have assignments submitted to like Turnitin, you own that content. So when they let their license lapse, they didn't ask for that content back. And that's something that they really regret, because it was 4 years of paper submitted by the university. So that's something to be aware of. I was tasked to find a new plagiarism checker that can be integrated into Canvas. So I interviewed, I got a group of faculty together and some IT folks. I said, okay, we're going to watch demonstrations. We're going to do really a SWOT analysis on what works best and what doesn't work. So we vetted Turnitin again, and the price was still the same. It was close to $10,000. Now this institution has only 1,200 students. We checked Grammarly, because some people use Grammarly on this side and they wanted to know what it was like. We checked Original, which is just been recently in the past couple months bought by Turnitin, but it's a small European company that is very reasonable. They were $1,800 a year, which is really, really reasonable for the population that we have. And then we checked out Qtext. Qtext is actually a free site that you can use. So with that said, we checked out Qtext. We asked for demos from these companies. They were more than happy to do it. Even the ones, Original, who was from the other side of the world, they got it in the middle of the night over there so they could be with us. And then I asked how well it integrates into the system. What we ended up going with is Original. I reached out to Turnitin and I said, can we have our data back? They said, so sad, too bad, you can't because you let your license lapse. Now that Turnitin has bought Original and we're in conversations with them again to bring into, they're changing it Original to turn it in simplicity. So once they're doing, we're going back to Turnitin, they said, we'll try to figure out with you how we can get all that data back. So those are questions that are really important to ask when you are, when you're looking for plagiarism checker, if you're tasked to do that. For me, that was me. I was invited to Thomas More to help them go from face-to-face to emergency remote teaching. And this was the first thing I was assigned to do once I was invited to come to their campus. So with that said, okay, next slide. How do we define students' perspective on plagiarism? So here's some scenarios and I'm a story-based telling person. I like to provide scenarios to people. International students perceive plagiarism in different ways. Some countries, it's not that big of a deal. So I had an instructor that came to me and she said, I have asked a student twice to please redo their paper because of plagiarism. And they are ignoring me. I said, well, did you have a conversation? This is a face-to-face class. And she said, no, maybe I need to do that. I said, ask if he's an international student. He was. Plagiarism is not a big deal in other countries. They're just taught it's okay to use each other's work. In the UK, in the United States, it is a huge, huge part of academic integrity. So with that said, she said, oh, I had no idea. We don't teach our students in first year experience how to actually cite content. They're coming in from high schools without actually knowing what plagiarism is. So having that conversation with your students really makes a difference in making sure they understand and embedding that into a first year experience and working with your students in your course to be sure they understand what plagiarism is. Now, coming from K-12, and this is from my own experience, my granddaughter is in first grade, and I was recently visiting and I said, I didn't have an answer to something. And she said, Grandma, just Google it. I said, really? Yeah, and then open up notes on your iPad and just copy and paste it into notes. And then you have it there all the time. So I'm thinking, K-12, they're being taught. Just Google it, just copy and paste. She's in first grade. Of course, she's not going to know about plagiarism then. But I actually worked with one of my sons who is in a different career right now, but when he was a tutor at a community college, his response was, students are coming in from K-12 not knowing what plagiarism is and not knowing how to write and not knowing how to critically think in a way and how to paraphrase things. So that's just something to be aware of when you're working with your students. What does it look like for most students? My brother got away with it, so why can't I? And that is a common theme I found this past year. During COVID, give me a break. I'm sick. My friend got away with it. Why can't I? And also look at your policies. Do you have a zero tolerance policy? I am finding that's a really interesting concept. So I'm just curious, does anybody out there have international students that they work with as an instructor or instructional designer? You can just put in the chat, yes, no, maybe. I'm always trying to figure out how to work with people. And it's a conversation that we really need to have when we work with faculty. And as instructional designers, I'm an instructional designer. So international students are huge. And when I bring it to people's awareness, they're like, wow, we had no idea. I guess I should have that conversation. Okay, so working with faculty on plagiarism, ask these questions. Do you have the plagiarism on an assignment, checker on an assignment turned on? A lot of times I hear the answer is, well, no. Well, why not? Well, because we have zero tolerance. And if I catch somebody who has plagiarized something, then I have to report it and then they might get expelled from school. So that's some things to think about. Why do you think they plagiarized? This is a huge one. I had an instructor come to me and he said, this student plagiarized this assignment. I said, why do you think so? Because I just know she did, but I can't find anything. I can't, original did not catch it. I looked on the internet. I said, what part of this assignment are you questioning? Well, this Excel table. And I looked and I said, but that's her original work, because I can go in the PDF or the Word document and manipulate the Excel table. Please reach out to her to see if that's her original work, instead of just assuming that, well, she doesn't write like this. I said, well, just reach out to her and ask her, because you're making some assumptions. And he came back and he said, it was her original work. And we had a phone conversation and she explained to me everything that she needed to explain to make sure the assignment was viable. Again, that's just something to really think about. We have these assumptions and, implicit by authority about our students. Have you posted the academic policy in your syllabus? This is a huge one. There are some institutions that do not do this. They do not check syllabi, and they don't want to post that in there. And again, if you have a zero tolerance for plagiarism on your campus, is that really worth it? Isn't it? Is it something to bring to administration? The policy that we have at Thomas More has been there for maybe 20 years, but it's an opportunity to teach your students about plagiarism. And I've found a lot of faculty don't report this because they don't want students to get kicked out of school. They don't want the DFW rate of their course to change. They want to see that they're passing students. What is a way to work with students that they know what's wrong? And how do you correct that? Well, one thing that I think is important is to have that conversation up front in your course. If you're teaching a writing course, put something inside of Canvas, share a video, have the conversation, work with your first year experienced people to be sure that students understand how to cite their work. Work with the Learning Center, have them come to your classes to actually do this. And this is a picture that I've there, and this is intentional. This is a comment from faculty. My students don't look like me, so they plagiarize. That's really not fair. And all online students cheat and plagiarize. How many of you have that conversation all the time with your students? Again, you can just put it in the chat. I just like, why do you have that understanding? I have multiple online degrees. I have never been questioned that. I've never seen this happen, but in conversations with my peers, especially during COVID, there's been rampant plagiarism going on. And, for many different reasons, we're not sure, but it's just a conversation that you need to have. So this next slide is really interesting. I'm going to talk about this quite a bit. I am kind of a fast talker, so please slow me down if you have questions. So this is an actual true scenario. I had an instructor who was teaching ethical leadership of all things. And she said, I have two students who submitted the same thing. It's like almost word for word. What do I do about it? I said, well, did you turn on the plagiarism checker? Well, no. I said, well, let's do that. So I did. The one on the right was copied word from word and original, gave the site, straight thing. The one on the left is the same documentation and it's the same plagiarism, but original did not catch it because the student went in and made changes to the document that it was different enough that it didn't catch it. And I contacted Original with these two scenarios, and they went and looked inside of Canvas because they have access to that and these documents, and they said, you're exactly right. The student's a pretty darn good plagiarizer. And the thing that's really interesting is if you read this scenario, the case study is about a student plagiarizing in a college course. So we're in an ethical leadership course with students who are plagiarizing on plagiarizing in a case study. So as you can see on the left-hand side, I've highlighted in blue, and I probably could go through here again and find more instances, but do you is bolded. It's actually not hyphenated, 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 different word, extra spaces, zero instead of the word zero, space, 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 considerate. Again, a little bit different wording. There's a space here, which you can't see on this side. So they put one little space in. 6 pillars of the professor, of professors, it's just so many little teeny things that the student went through and did this. So I said to the instructor, I said, first off, she was really angry. And I said, you know what, don't take it personally. Because I do, it's an ethical leadership course. I said, just take a breath, relax, noodle on it a little bit, and then go through and, yeah, somebody said capitals, noodle it on a little bit, and then decide what your next plan of action is. Do you have academic honesty policies posted anywhere in this course? No. I said, well, there is an issue right there. How are you going to work with these students? Well, let me find out what the academic policy is. And she dug deep and hard, and it was deeply embedded in our website, and she found it. She approached the 2 students. They both said, yeah, we don't have time. We're busy with practice. They're athletes. They're just like, this is an assignment I don't want to deal with. So what she ended up doing is giving them both zeros for the assignments because they both plagiarized. She had the proof. She had original. I asked her to report it to the associate provost, and she said no, because I don't want them to get kicked out of school. And I said, but you know what? The guy on the left is a pretty good plagiarizer. If he's plagiarizing at a 100 level course, what's he going to be like plagiarizing at a 400 level course? And you need to work with students to make sure they understand the consequences, because when they go out in the real world, there are consequences. So I'm just curious, and you can go ahead and open up and raise your hand or just open up your mic and have any conversation right now. Has anybody experienced a scenario like this? I just am really curious if it's just me or if other people experience this at all. Okay, so I'm going to go to the next slide, and I just was on oh, we do have somebody in chat. Yes, I did until now. Yeah, you don't know, but there's some dang good plagiarizers out there, and they're learning it from somewhere. And I often think that in this situation, this student, this 18-year-old traditional student, learned how to plagiarize from somebody else. It may have been a family member. It may have been somebody else. And yes, I will get to the apps that make changes. That's coming up in my next few slides. So again, the students are really good at doing this, and it's surprising. It's just surprising about it that they can go through and buy papers or copy and paste and not really think about the consequences. So bringing content awareness to your students. I actually was just in the copyright session before this, and I did go out and check. Mimi and Eunice has actually created comments. And how do we work with faculty, and how do we work with students? The comment is copyright without permission is stealing. Copyright without permission is stealing. Thief. So really bringing it forefront to the first year experience and working with people, having your librarians come in and work with your students, having the writing center come in and say, this is what you really need. Requiring your students when they're writing the first paper to go to the writing center and get some help and show that they've been at the writing center. Have students sign a contract stating they understand plagiarism. This can be powerful. Some people don't think it is, but it's making them accountable. It depends on where you live and what type of institution you're at and how it's handled in those types of situations. Post the campus policy in your syllabi as an assignment. Put it in there. Do you understand this? If so, sign this document, put it in the Dropbox. Find out some way to bring plagiarism into the conversation, whether it's a discussion board post. This campus uses mostly face-to-face. They're really well known for their face-to-face. The emergency remote teaching is where I came in and worked with a lot of that. Use the plagiarism checker in your LMS. It's there for a reason. A lot of people are like, well, I don't know how to do that. Reach out to somebody to get some help. And when it's put inside the LMS and students submit the assignments, it will go directly to the checker and come back with different colors to let you know. It also has a downloadable report. I didn't do that because again, they would have to use somebody's assignment, and there's a whole thing of FERPA and sharing things like that. So I did not include that as in there. But my session is going to be really short, but I'm going to open it up again at the end for conversations. So hopefully this video works. This is a video of my friend Jerome Stewart. Jerome Stewart is actually a creative writing instructor at Thomas More University. And last fall, I was having a conversation with him, and he was really upset about students plagiarizing. He's a creative writer, he's an actor, and he goes, you know, the devil's in the details. I said, it is. And he goes, oh my God, I just have this idea. So he created this video. I'm going to see, hopefully you can hear it. And it's a 5-minute long video, but it's really entertaining, and it's got his students' attention. Remember, this has happened around Halloween time when he recorded it. He posted it last fall. Students paid attention. He posted it this past spring. It didn't have quite the same effect. So I'm going to see how I can share the sound. Can you hear the sound? Can you let me know if you hear the song?
I cannot hear it, Rebecca.
No.
Okay, let me figure out how to do this, because it's really important that you hear the sound. We were working on this before everybody came on, because I really want, this is a big part of my demonstration. Okay, stats, copyright, loop, shoot, stats.
I think it's where you pressed share for the screen, and then there must be a sound box. I believe that's where it is.
Share. Oh, here we go. Capture, pause, stop recording, share. I got it right here. I found it. It's a very little thing in the corner. Okay.
Oh, perfect.
Same.
Because this is really,
I get you just the same.
this is part of my demonstration and how to use a creative way to work with your students. It's funny, but it's serious. So I'm going to start again.
See the fire in my eye.
Start again.
So
Sorry for the
let's talk about plagiarism. Do you know what it is? Do you know how to do it? Because sometimes you do it accidentally, but that doesn't matter because it's the same. I get you just the same. See the fire in my eye. So let's talk about plagiarism. Plagiarism is when you take anyone else's words and claim they are your own. Now you can do this accidentally if you forget to use quotation marks. If you don't have quotation marks around people's words, we will assume they are yours. And if we assume they are yours, that's plagiarism. And then you can get kicked out of school, or fail the class, or fail the assignment, but usually kicked out of school. Yes, plagiarism. Don't do this. I know it's simple. We do want you to use other people's words, but we want you to attribute them. That means putting their name next to them in little parentheses, or making sure that there's some quotation marks around them so that we know that you know the difference between your words and your words, their words and your words, or else plagiarism. We don't want that. Again, be careful. I have seen a lot of plagiarism even last semester here at Thomas More. Whoa, the flames got very hot there. Whoa. I'm more angry now, yes, because the flames tried to kill me. Plagiarism is dangerous, just like this fire is dangerous. Yes, you think you're playing with it, but no. So when I have things go through original, they find all of the things on the web that you might have used. And people use a lot of things on the web. They think that I won't find them or that original won't find them, but it does. It's a really good program. Very, very good. Unfortunately, it keeps people out of hell. Or maybe it actually sends them there. I'm not sure. But anyway, Either way, we can tell when you've borrowed something that you shouldn't have borrowed and claimed it as
Sorry.
your own. How many times have I caught this at Thomas More? Too many times, too many times. And already sometimes in this class or other classes that I'm teaching this semester, so don't do this. Be really careful about when you use other people's words. So any 3 words in a row that are words that are specific to that essay can be plagiarism. So this is why it's important to learn to summarize and paraphrase. Put it in your own words, or else plagiarism and death. No, not death, but still kind of close. Getting kicked out of school, nobody wants that. No one wants to flunk. Everyone's upset when they get a bad grade, even a B. So I don't want that to happen to you. And of course, if I find plagiarism in any assignment, I automatically give it an F. And if it's done twice, you fail the course, and I don't want to do that to you. No. Even though I have a scary mask on right now, I do not want you to fall into the trap of plagiarism. So I want you to be careful on how you use other people's words. Always enjoy them and bring them into your text to support your text, but always attribute them to the right people. Always make sure that their name appears next to it if you're going to use them, or at least quotation marks, so I know that you know that it's not yours. Right? Yes. Or else, say it with me, plagiarism. Yeah, that's bad. Don't want to do that. Okay, so this has been our plagiarism video. I hope that you take academic honesty seriously, because it can have a huge effect on your career if you get thrown out of school because of plagiarism. You might not get into another school at all. So I know near the end of school, every class, near the end of the semester, there is a lot of fear that you may not be getting a good enough grade. And there's a temptation to buy a paper or to lift things off the web that I'm not going to find. But Original finds these things, and sometimes I do. Actually, every teacher knows your voice. A good English teacher is going to know the voice that you use in your writing, and we can tell when it's not yours, and we get activated to find you. And so, please do not do that. Even if you're panicked at the end of the semester, don't commit the sin of plagiarism. No, don't do that, because we want you to pass and we want you to do well in our class. Look at how high this flame is getting and how bright my face looks now, because I'm inflamed to tell you, no, don't do the plagiarism thing. All right. So this has been your plagiarism message from the fire. Do not do this. Okay. Thank you. Bye. Let's talk.
I'm going to stop it. So somebody had a comment in the chat, just a minute. It was, was a scenario where it was really hilarious. There was actually, the students paid attention, faculty paid attention. They were like, can we use this in our course? So Jerome got a hold of me, about a week ago. We're getting close to commencement. He had a student who went and lifted a paper from a news site called Papers Owl, like the bird, and Original picked it up, and it was 100% plagiarized. And he approached the student, and he had the documentation with him, and the student said, yeah, so what are you going to do? Because I'm going to fail you in the assignment, but it's your final project. The student was like, well, do I fail the course? He goes, I don't know. But I have told you repeatedly that this is how I grade. This is, it's in the video, it's in my syllabus. There's so many things about this. So again, it's the message that you give your students. So sorry, I keep on turning it on. I'm on the next slide. So this is just some citations that I have. But I do want to have a conversation. So feel free to turn on your cameras, raise your hand, jump in. Do you have any suggestions for your peers in how you do work with plagiarism? Whether it's creative or whether you think it's not. I am just open to having that conversation. And it's part of it. One of the challenges of presenting virtually is bringing people into the conversation. So comments, things to share, scenarios to share with each other.
Hi there. This is David. How are you?
Hi, David.
about 4 weeks out of the semester, 4 weeks from the end of the semester, I do have the students give me a last day's calendar on when all their finals are. And so they turn into me. I'm a writing teacher, but I have them as sort of have them make a finals week calendar with their work schedule, their doctor's appointments, anything that they're doing that week, just so that they can plan ahead and when their final projects are done. Because otherwise, well, I know from my own self, I wouldn't. Sometimes I would be waiting to the last weekend to do 3 things and have to work at the restaurant that weekend, and not be able to get off. And I always was myself. I was always tumbling towards these bad consequences. So I have them sort of look ahead, plan ahead. I think, and I try to find a little sweet spot that's not too far ahead, but one that's right there where I'm going to capture those kids like me or kids like I was that way. And the way it fits into a writing class is that I use calendars like that for pre-writing assignments, paper planning assignments, so that they could maybe tell me about a typical week earlier in the semester. So they're already used to telling me about their week's schedules. So
that's a really good suggestion. Also with writing, you can also scaffold assignments and turn the plagiarism checker off when they submit it, and then at the end when they compile it all, then putting the plagiarism checker on the last assignment and then having it go through. I actually was doing a presentation on Turnitin to some PsyD faculty, and I thought, oh, I just finished this paper. My instructor didn't put it through, so let me put it through because it's my own work. And it came back 96% plagiarized. And I about died because here I am presenting to faculty on my own work, and you have to cite your own work. So again, it went through and it said that I was plagiarizing myself. So again, I didn't understand that. I was really surprised. But that's a really good tip, David. Does anybody else have any tips or anything they'd like to share? Why discuss why they're so looking at?
Hello.
Go ahead.
Yes, my name is Maira Rivera. One thing that I implemented for my students that are first year is that I show them how the report comes from the checker and how it shows me where they get the information, how they is compared in the different ways the report comes from. And it helps me because now the students know that, oh, okay, that's what the professor is going to get. And it make them aware of the application is there and it's used, we are using it.
That's really good, valuable information. Some people are talking about Safe Assign. I've never heard of Safe Assign. I will say though, when I talked to Jerome about this last paper in the last scenario, the student bought it from PapersOwl. He went to the website, you could purchase a paper, then you could press a button and it will paraphrase it for you. It'll go through and mix things up for you.
I didn't realize that this was maybe a help with plagiarism, but I do require students to use online tutoring. And I can't think of the name right now, but I've said it 1,000 times. But so if they, but I want them to put the tutoring into their writing process so that they lengthen it out, so that they have sort of a 2 or 3 day sort of holding period where the paper is off. So they have to do it early and work on it afterwards. But that way also having extra help does make them relaxed and that they don't feel like they need to cheat. Because they're taking more time and they're getting some more help on the paper.
And the conversation has been too with my peers. Why are students cheating? Is it because they don't understand how to write a paper? Is it because they are really struggling with the whole concept? Do they have learning differences that we don't know about or aren't diagnosed? Do they know how to critically think and how to critically write? So again, those are so many conversations. I like what, reference brain fuse. That's brain fuses on learning tutoring. students usually plagiarize when they're procrastinate or they're stressed out. I think that's really true. With that said, I encourage faculty as an instructional designer to look at the schedule and say, if you can offer a writing assignment on week 15 instead of week 16, or week 14 and instead of week 15, and have them do that first before they have 5 things due in 1 week, it's really, really proven to be beneficial for those instructors to do that, because they get the best quality work. Instead of saying, oh, I have this paper to do, this project to do, and 5 big exams online that I have to take at the same time. So it's just some things to think about as we move forward. So there is actually, I am finding that there are so many students who are actually going out there buying papers and who are plagiarizing, and it's unfortunate. But again, you know, we need to start the conversation at the beginning of the semester, not the end of the semester, and work with our students and really have an impact on that. So this is kind of a funny story, but it's not. So in 2002, I had a high school diploma, and I went back to community college, but I lost a bet, and I had something to prove. So I went to community college, and I learned 6 degrees from 2002 to 2014 online, and I wrote my dissertation. In that experience, I was in a community college class. I was going to school with my kids at the community college. They were doing high school, post-secondary education, where they were high school students going to community college. And I was in a writing course with one of my son's friends. And we had to write a paper on an event that had a significant impact on our lives. And we had to share those in a peer review in face-to-face in class before we finished the paper. So my son's friend was in my group. Yeah. We shared the paper. He comes to my house. He heard me talking about it. And I submitted my paper to the instructor, and he came back to me. He said, "You plagiarized this other guy's paper." I said, "Pardon me?" He goes, "Yeah, they're the same title, the same contents, almost the same words." I said, "Well, think about this. My subject was an event that had a big impact on my life. I wrote about the day Elvis Presley died, and I was backpacking in the mountains, and I came down, and it's kind of like in a whole week, the whole world changed as far as that is concerned. Do you think this 18-year-old kid was alive then?" He went, "Oh, that's a really good point. Here I'm a 40-year-old something writing about something that happened in 1976. And he goes, "I didn't even think about it that way. He plagiarized you." I said, "Yeah, he did. And I don't think I should get penalized for something somebody else did." So he went back to the other person, and he said, "You know, you get a 0. And the kid who was at my house one day, he goes, "How dare you do that?" I said, "How dare you plagiarize my paper?" So what you did was academically wrong, and I'm really ashamed knowing you that you did that. And he goes, "Yeah, you're right. I guess I shouldn't have done it. Maybe I learned the lesson." I said, "I hope the heck you did." So again, it's been going on for a very, very long time. And that was, you know, back then before, you know, and that was in 2002. I didn't use the internet for a whole lot. I did, but my writing was my writing. So again, it's really a frustrating thing to have students plagiarizing your course, but it's also an opportunity for you to bring students to the next level, to really point them in the right place, but also let them know that there are consequences for what they do. But the chat's just been going crazy. This is really nice. I appreciate this. And making it clear, there are some instructors who don't. At Thomas More University, they are really well known for their face-to-face courses, but they also have faculty who've been there for many, many years. When I visited, I asked a student how he liked Canvas, and he said, "I love it. I had it in high school." "What's a blue book?" I said, "Pardon me?" Because I just had to buy a blue book for a test. So again, we teach the students the way we were taught, and sometimes we need to rethink that and how to really meet our students where they're at. And if they don't understand how to do stuff, take time to explain it. I don't know if Turnitin is embedded inside of Blackboard. I know it can be embedded inside of Canvas if you have a license, and it works really well. The same with Original, where Grammarly does the same thing. You would have to reach out to your LMS administrator, making a comment up the chat. So, does anybody else have any questions, comments? I am open to that. You feel free to reach out to me. I am actually The Quality Matters Vice Chair for the Instructional Design Association. If you are an instructional designer connected with Quality Matters, which you all are, being that you're here, I really suggest that you join that association because we share a lot. We have opportunities to work with each other as instructional designers and mentor each other on that as well. And it's the same with instructors. If you have questions or anything, I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me by my first name, last name, and you can reach out to me that way. So stay around if you want more conversation. Otherwise, thank you.
Okay, wondering if anyone has any last minute questions. Seems like maybe they're taking a break before their next session.